Hey Guitar Champion, what's going on? I'm Justin Hornbach back from my practice cave and welcome to today's video. Another video of the series of the League Extraordinary Educators. And the year starts strong because we have none other than a legendary shredmaster of the current generation, Stephen Taranto, in today's video. Again, we are talking about practice routine, practice habits, how his practice routine has changed, but also how he composes his kind of music and how he structures and composes his kind of solo. It's an extremely interesting interview, and today is his birthday, so I want from all of you to go into the comment section and wish Shredmaster Stephen Taranto a happy birthday and a really great day. Before the video starts, I'm sorry about the audio quality of my microphone. Something went wrong with my interface. I know where the problem is right now, but that's the reason why my voice sounds a little bit robotic, a little bit out of phase. I have dealt with the problem. I mean, you can hear right now how beautiful my voice can sound when I'm talking into this microphone. But you can hear Stephen loud and clearly, and this is way more important than hearing my annoying voice. So much about that. Let's roll with the intro and let's start with the interview with Stephen Taranto. One of my biggest fanboy moments of this year, because I absolutely love this guy and his playing. Okay, welcome Stephen to this show, the show of the Extraordinary Educators. Really glad to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's a lovely Saturday night here in Sydney. It's about 40 degrees and I'm sick as a dog, but I'm glad to be here in any
40
case.
degrees. Well, here in Germany, it's like 12 p.m. and it's -2 degrees Celsius.
Ooh, I would take that over the 40 degrees. That's like 3 showers a day. I'm sick of it.
Today, we want to talk about you and your way, how you become so good that you are right now, because you are currently in the current guitar generation, well, at least for me and for a lot of other guitar players out there, one of the goats out there, one of the best
Wow.
guitar players that we have. And I want to talk with you about your practice routine and some education stuff, but also some creative stuff, how you come up with some ideas. And one question that I always ask the people that are coming to this show here in the beginning is, have you practiced today? And if yes, what is currently on your practice program? But you've mentioned already that you're sick, so I think you have a really good excuse for not practicing.
Sadly, yeah, unfortunately, as you can see, the guitars back there. Normally, one of them will be lying on sort of this area, in within reach of my office sort of space, and yeah, it's been hard to sort of pick it up today. But I'm sort of feeling the itch, if I'm going to practice anything, it's obviously going to be something picking related, because I find if you don't pick for
Mhm.
it seems like a day or two, then it's almost like you're picking for the first time again. So I
Yeah.
don't know, some maybe three notes per string bursts to sort of get the inside outside sort of thing locked in, and that always seems to help me. Although sometimes you sort of fall into ruts of just playing the same things over and over, and then you tend to get fatigued really early on. But luckily, if there's anything good coming out of being sick, it's had a bit of time away. So next time I approach it, it'll feel fresh.
So in your normal daily practice routine when you are not sick, are you more kind of the organized practice guitar tube dude, or are you more like, okay, there's one thing that I'm going to tackle and I only focus on that one thing, or are you really planned out and have a strategy behind your practice routine?
Honestly, 90% of the time, it's usually sort of very off the cuff and sort of very sort of like how I'm sort of feeling at the time. It tends to sort of, if I come up with ideas in that time, it's generally by accident. It's very sporadic sort of routine. Sometimes, like maybe if I've written something a night or two prior, that I felt like I wanted to sort of really iron out, like when I, do so like a crazy lick or something that maybe I couldn't play it at the time, that will tend to take up a lot of my sort of mental capacity for maybe the next day or two, depending on how long I need to really iron that out. So yeah, I guess like all the licks and all that sort of lend itself to having to practice something quite regimented and having maybe like, okay, 10 o'clock till however long it takes. Like one thing I like to do, because I'm in a newish apartment, there's really, really nice sunlight here. So
Oh, nice.
my time limit here is before the sun goes down, which at the moment is like 8 o'clock, so it's awesome. But now I'm sick, so it sucks.
Mm,
But generally speaking, unless I'm practicing something um pre-written or anything like that, it's usually very random. Like I'll just be watching YouTube videos or listening to music and just sort of playing over the top of whatever I'm listening to. It's very, very sort of random, no like 1 hour picking, 1 hour tapping.
mm.
Which honestly I've watched this channel a lot and I find a lot of players seem to sort of fall into that category a lot. A lot of these amazing players. Oh, hello. And, yeah, and it's sort of a funny thing that I've noticed with a lot of like really good players. I mean, I know Michael Romeo from Symphony X is sort
Mm,
of famously known for not really having any crazy practice routine in my opinion. And I think in your opinion as well, he's one of like otherworldly sort of skill. So
mm.
it says a lot about maybe pure practice it doesn't work for everyone, but people can, you know, do well.
I have to take away Ingvi for really quickly because otherwise
Oh,
he
no, that's okay.
say
Just keep
hello.
that in.
Oh. What I always love to, or what I always find always really interesting when I take a look at certain guitar players is how their practice routine kind of develops through the years. So when you take a look retrospectively and your practice routine when you were a teenager to now, what would you say has changed, and what are the things that are relatively common to when you're seeing it from like back in the day?
That's a good question. I think it's one of those things where it's like, well, first of all, I played infinitely more hours when I was younger because I had infinitely more time to do so. And maybe you sort of had that naivety of like thinking like you're a lot better than you actually are. So it was a bit more exciting at the time. But it's just funny. I don't know if you suffer from the same thing, but the better quote unquote you get, or the obviously the
Yeah,
more experience I should say you get,
yeah,
the worse you feel
yeah,
about yourself as you play.
that was
Yeah.
my method for the last couple of years because
Hmm.
I used to have this naivety for a long time, thinking
Hmm.
that I'm much better than I am. And then I started to take a really close look into my playing and I realized, God damn it, hell no, there's so much where I should
Oh.
improve on. And the more detailed I looked at into it, the more I realized, okay, God damn it, that note is not really picked. Or here
Hmm.
I have I'm currently working a lot on my left hand. A
Hmm.
lot of issues with this kind of note to have the micro timing correctly. But yeah, that's exactly my method for the last couple of years. I always say this to my students. Exactly that
Yeah,
sentence.
exactly. It's that valley of despair that you sort of I don't know what I sort of fall like obviously when I was younger it would be like, oh, wow, look how good I've gotten so quickly. I'm really, really good. And then yeah, there's that humbling experience, when you discover home recording or anything like that, playing with a band or something like that. And it's like, wow, I can't keep time to save my life. So that's something to work on. So I guess the routine has changed quite a lot, honestly, because honestly, as you get more comfortable and more experience with the instrument, the routine is more about, I guess, remedial or more just sort of keeping keeping the technique intact rather than trying to build overt technique. Like learning the finger tap for the first time, learning how to actually properly alternate pick instead of just picking one string and picking as fast as you can and knocking every string around it. So there's things like that. I mean, I guess you could learn different techniques. I mean, there's an infinite amount of techniques and ways you can play things like thumping and maybe four finger tapping and things like that that I'm not super strong with. I could be spending more time learning to do those, but I guess
Mm,
part of me is just like, oh, I've found my strengths. I enjoy playing things that sound good.
mm.
So going back to the drawing board and learning things that, I can't play, it's kind of hard as a near 35-year-old man to find the time to implore the patience to
And
learn
that,
a different technique. But I've been trying. I've been thumping's it's on its way, but it's like I use techniques these days is it's like, am I going to write a song with this technique? Or, it's like, is my time really worth being spent? Or do I use that time to, hone in on what I already know and strengthen it even further? And that's sort of the route I've taken. I think Steve Vai famously said that, don't focus on your weaknesses, focus on your strengths.
mm,
I guess I've taken that on board and, I don't do a heck of a lot, I feel, on the instrument, but what I do, I feel, and there's a gazillion shredders out there that are insanely clean and ridiculous, but it's about sort of finding your sound and
Hmm.
things, your sort of unique voice, I guess, is something I try to work on a bit more, whether subconsciously or very obviously. But generally, once you put something out in the public, it's up to them to judge if it's unique or not. Every time I post stuff, it's like, oh, it sounds like this, or it sounds like this. It's like, oh, I wasn't thinking of any of those things, but okay, if you say so, I guess that's good, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
that's some sort of answer that I get from most of the people that I'm asking this question because, yeah, the answers all the time, life happens, so that the
Mm,
amount of practicing is, of course, getting a little bit lower because some people get starting a family, some people starting doing
mhm.
some jobs or whatnot. Even when you're a full-time musician, you are doing so much more than just playing guitar. And yeah, back in the day, as a 14-year-old, you don't have to pay taxes, you don't have to pay any rent or stuff. So,
Yeah.
that was good
Very
old
true.
times.
Yeah, yeah. The simple times. Bring me back. Bring me
Yeah.
back.
So
Yeah,
back in the
man.
day, were you more like covering solos from your favorite artists, or were you
Mm,
already early more into writing your own stuff, your own licks, and all this kind of stuff?
for sure. It was definitely, yeah, early on I wasn't doing a lot of composing, I guess, or writing, like writing of my own licks or anything. I was still very much in the I don't really know how to explore this fretboard that well. I mean, I can kind of, I can play a E minor pentatonic pretty mean and maybe add like a passing blues note in there and it's like, wow, I'm the best. But I
Yeah.
think the one way I sort of learned to sort of break out of those boxes was to learn songs. So like it started off as Iron Maiden songs and Metallica in particular were very pivotal in my sort of formative years of learning. Um, just like even like something like the Master of Puppets riff, like which at the time I remember being like that is one of the most creative riffs of all time. I mean, this is probably 6 months of me into me playing. So I'm just like, wow, they're using like every single note in this
Mhm.
in Western music now that I've come to discover in one riff. I'm like, that's like, how do you think of that? Like, as when you start, you learn like E minor pentatonic, for instance, your scope outside of E minor pentatonic is non-existent at that point until you sort of find those little, musical passages like Master of Puppets was like the first one for me that was like, oh my gosh, okay, there's more. Like, you can play other notes, it's fine, you can do it, and it actually sounds really good, and you should be doing it. Um, and then you obviously that opened the floodgates to learning Megadeth solos and obviously playing them terribly and. Obviously hearing Marty Freeman for the first time, it's like, what is he doing? So you almost like kind of miss it until you sort of train your ear and your
Mhm.
hands to
Mhm.
realize, oh wow, he's doing some outlandish stuff that like to this day, like it's
Yeah.
2024,
Yeah.
you hear any solo of Frost and Peace or Countdown to Extinction, it's just like it's just perfect. Like I'm like what there's no other word for it. It's a
Yeah.
perfection. Serves the song. It's super interesting note choice wise. So yeah, stuff like that, learning those sort of solos definitely helped sort of break me out of the box, if you will. And yeah, I guess I've just been on that sort of journey ever since. It's just been an obsession. So it's pretty cool in a way. It's never felt boring, like for one day. Even if I don't feel like playing every day, it's like not something that
Yeah.
I will ever give up for whatever reason, whether,
Yeah.
whether it's a professional setting or just a recreational one, it's always going to be in my life, Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the blessing of us guitar players that we have this kind of same energy, the same emotion like when we were 16 years old and listening to the first time to I don't know Dimebag or John Petrucci or whatnot. That the same fascination still motivates us today to trying to improve as good as possible on the instrument. Though it
Yeah.
shifted towards more I have the feeling nowadays it is less like this, okay, how the fuck are they doing it and what
Hmm.
the hell is going on? It is we gain more confidence in or experience in, okay, I know what he's doing and with a certain amount of time I could recreate it because I have this amount of experience. But sometimes you're finding in a place where you see Instagram guitar players where you think, okay, what the hell is he doing there? Like I had this experience shared with you when seeing your first Facebook post back in the day. Like it was like 2000,
Gosh,
2018.
2015,
Yeah,
2016, long time ago, man. It's crazy.
with your old kind of purple
Nothing's
guitar
changed.
that you had.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. The old Ruben. Yeah, that was a cool little guitar. It was
That
nice little.
that really blew me away and still keep me fascinating to this day.
That's awesome, man. I forgot about that. Like all the stuff. I sort of forget about things I did like prior to like 2020. It's just, oh wow, I actually did post a lot back then. Just for some really random stuff.
What would you say from the current generations, just to name a few? Are there any guitar players out there where you have the same kind of feeling and the same kind of fascination where you'd say, okay, God damn it, I have to sit down or I want to learn, especially that because this is so cool what this guy's doing? They have such
Yeah, man.
inspiration.
I mean, it doesn't end. I mean, geez, where do we start?
Yeah, okay.
Instagram players are just gone insane. Obviously, you got insane dudes like Spiro
We'll do that.
Ducias and Baxty, of course. Joe Lowell, if you know him,
Mhm.
he's one of
Sure.
the
Yeah, yeah,
most
yeah.
creative modern writers.
Yeah.
Um, I don't even think he knows it. It's just it's unbelievable. They're sort of the big three for me that are just like, wow, okay, guitar is in a
Good place.
very exciting and great place. Yeah, I think. And yeah, they're just like it's funny, like those three particularly sort of to me epitomize like the modern player,
Mhm.
the modern prog player, especially. They sort of like, you got Baxley, which is, the most ridiculous picking hand of his age group,
Yeah.
bar none, like that I've seen. I'm sure like I said, there's a gazillion players out there, but
Mhm.
to stand out like that is ridiculous. And then you got guys like Spiro who, yeah, they're essentially the future. I think anything like he's just going to go on to
Uh,
rule the world essentially. It's quite frightening. And then Joe, like yeah, like
very
just one of the
creative.
coolest,
Yeah.
super creative, great technically as well, like really understated, kind of underrated as like an actual technical player.
Mhm.
But his writing is top notch, like catchy prog, like prog. Like I'll hear a song and say it's
Yeah.
like, oh, where did I hear that? Oh yeah, it's like stuck in my head for the whole day. It's like that's hard to do, man. Prog is sort of known for being very self-indulgent and
Yeah. Especially in this
quite
kind of format. I think it's so hard
exactly.
to write something which only is like 90-second long instead of
Mhm.
having a song that is 12 minutes long, where you can really tell a story on the long shot, a long term. To tell a story on this short amount of time is really hard for me, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and like to pull off with such finesse is amazing. But yeah, other than that, we've got Raphael from
Really?
yeah,
Yeah.
Darth and
Yeah.
Obscura, like frightening technique, and just it seems like he's one of those guys that can kind of just do anything. And obviously you got your greats, Tosin Abasi, of course. I mean,
The
what
OG.
can be said about this man that hasn't already been said? I mean, it's just unbelievable
I
what this
call
guy
them
has
all the
done
time
for guitar.
the YouTube OGs, the ones who
Oh
start
man.
all of this together with Guthrie and Tom
Oh
Quayle,
yeah, Guthrie.
all
Oh
the
Quail,
guys. Yeah.
dude, like absolute monsters. Quail and like Svogli and all those guys, man, like so ridiculous, like to this day, and like just, in my opinion, like incredibly timeless. Like
Yeah.
you watch a Svogli solo from 2006, and
Yeah.
if you saw a modern player that was up and coming out with anything half as good as that, it's like, well, this guy's the future. It's just like timeless, man. It's crazy. It's like just good guitar playing is just good guitar playing forever. Like and it's so scary because that's like the standard now, like kids who've been playing for 1 or 2 years sound like this now. And it's just like, what the hell, like now I'm the old
Yeah,
fart that
that's the
sounds
one now
dated
we are
and
the old with our early
yeah, and it's
M32.
scary because like I want to keep up. Like I don't want to
Yeah.
like because it's exciting to push things forward, but yeah, it's like it's tough. These are really good. I don't know if I can be as good as these guys. Like maybe once upon a time in for my era, I guess if you will, if you want to call it, I was a bit of a standout, but like it's hard to keep up and. Yeah, it's tough. I don't know, but it's really super inspiring at the same time. It's
Inspiring.
this weird push and pull.
And I think it is like we are the best generation of the best time of guitar playing, in my opinion, because I
I
mean,
agree.
it will not maybe be so popular like in the 80s, then, but the niche is so much bigger. And the community inside of the niche is so strong, and it's so easy to interact with such great guitar players, and they're all so open and It's no really competition. It's more like friendships between guitar players who share things, who inspire each other. And this is, I think, for me, the best the best job situation where I could be. You know.
That's very true, actually. Yeah, there's so much camaraderie between all the players in the community. It's actually insane. I guess that's like a big thing that's different from the 80s, where the 80s was all about being really big and loud and, quite sort of quite in your face, because that's how you sort of made a mark for yourself and how you stood out. Like you had to, there was no internet to
Yeah.
share your stuff. Like you had to come out with, insane records and look crazy. And there was a bit more of a loudness to it. These days, I feel like, a lot of these, particularly in our community, it's not, no one's trying to be a rock star. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
they love guitar because
They
they
love
love
guitar. Yeah.
guitar. Like what,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like we're all sort of cut from a very similar cloth in that sense, where we're doing it for like the sake of guitar playing rather than the sake of trying to be popular. And because if we're trying to be popular and do, be famous or like super, like, on the mainstream,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
80s hair metal, whatever, like however big that was in the time. If we're trying to get to that level, we're clearly barking up the wrong tree. So, none of that ego is there, is present, at least for me. And all I'm interested in is wanting to just be as good as I possibly can be because it's fun. I don't know if I
Mm.
can inspire someone to it's sort of like a leapfrog. We sort of bounce off each other and inspire
Mm.
each other, and it's
Yeah.
really cool. I don't know. And we've curated some of the coolest music that has ever existed. And playing, of course, as well. So I'm excited to, I guess, play a very, very small part
Mm.
and just sort of allow my little contribution to the whole meta of it all. But
Yeah.
yeah, oh well, in my mind, I feel like like we all offer something quite unique.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you brought up that there really isn't a competition. I agree. Maybe the fans of this sort of playing, I hope they don't treat it like a competition as such between the players because
Yeah.
we're all really good friends and we all respect what we do and we're all just trying to push the envelope and just have a lot of fun. Ultimately, I just want to have fun like doing this stuff. Like I don't care about making millions of dollars and all
Yeah,
that sort of stuff.
we
I
could
just want
spend
to
our time so much better when we were chasing the dream of getting rich and popular.
exactly.
I could spend my time so much better than practicing my right hand for 1 hour or what.
It's like that guy's $1 million, but can he play this? It's like bet he can't. got got
Going
him
back a
got him
little
on that.
Going back a little bit to your background again, do you have some sort of musical background? Are you coming from a really strong musical family, and or are you like
Um,
self-taught, or do you have a big educational background in your guitar playing career so far?
in my immediate family, not really. Well, my uncle, so my dad's like oldest brother, um, was into a lot of metal and rock music. Um, I remember sort of growing up, like just seeing all the posters in his room and all sorts of stuff when he lived at my grandparents' place back in the 90s
Mm.
when he was still living at home, and he had all these cool guitars. I didn't know anything really about guitar. Guitar sort of I sort of stumbled upon it almost, I guess, by accident. Well, like we had music class. It was year 8. I remember it was 8th grade, I guess you would call it in
Yeah.
other areas, but we did we're learning like a different instrument every month for music class, so it'd be like recorder, the best instrument ever. And then there was like some woodwind instruments which I hated because I always ran out of breath. And then eventually we did acoustic guitar, and we learned some chords. We learned Wild Thing. I'm sure it's like one of the first songs everyone learns.
Mm.
um I remember everyone really struggling to get their hand around, like, doing the A and the D and then the E major chord. But I found that I sort of was able to do it. No, I didn't know if it was like a fluke, but I was just like, oh, okay, no, this isn't too hard, sort of thing. And then I guess I had a knack, but I didn't know it at the time. And then a bunch of people in my friends group got really into guitar from that, so they ended up getting like some really cheap electric guitars. And they're like, man, you should play as well. And I'm like, I don't care that much for it. I was really interested in just playing GameCube and that's about it. And just in studying, that's about all I was doing at the time. And then the next year rolled past, and my uncle found out that I'd played some guitar, I think through my mom, and she must have said something. And he gave me a really cheap, I can't even remember the brand now of the guitar. It was like a Samick or some really cheap like $100 guitar. I didn't even have an amp or anything. It's just like, oh yeah, please take it and like play with it. And I was like, not that interested. Like, oh, whatever it is. And then I don't know what it was, just seeing my friends because we did music again in year nine the year after, and
Mm,
then seeing them. There's one particular player that was really good. He was playing like the Stairway to Heaven solo and stuff. He'd probably been playing for a couple of years, and I was just like, oh my god, he's really good. And that sort of sparked some weird fire. Like, I guess it was a bit of a competitive edge at the time because it's like, oh, I'm gonna learn as many riffs as possible, and like, oh, I bet this guy can't play this riff. I'll show him, sort of thing.
mm,
Um, and then yeah, it sort of spiraled out of control. I found myself just I guess my ear was pretty strong compared to other people, so I was figuring out songs by ear, not having to rely on tabs or anything. I wasn't figuring out Dream Theater songs at the time. It was like Blink songs or
mm.
Sum 41 and some really basic Iron Maiden songs. And yeah, from there it just sort of snowballed out of control. I ended up, really learning really quickly and for no apparent reason. I guess it's like one of those things. Um, some people can just gravitate towards certain skills quicker than others can. Like I can't, like I did programming for 3 years at uni, and I couldn't code "Hello World" anymore. Just because it doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't it doesn't speak to me, or I don't really get it. Like that side of my brain is sort of locked, I guess. But like something like guitar playing and all that just felt really natural. So
Yeah.
yeah, caught the bug, and the rest was history. Within a year, oh, he's that really good guitar player. Like, like
Mm.
it is what it is. And yeah, I guess there was a bit of a competitive nature, like trying to like outlearn solos.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what's your solo count? It's like I want to learn
What's
10
this?
solos by the end of the year. Yeah, that was a thing, like at least in my mind. And was it in our sort of like direct friend circle of like 5 or 6 players or whatever. Um, as far as I'm aware, I've outplayed them all now in terms of like longevity. I could be wrong. I haven't spoken to a lot of them in a while, but I hope they're still playing.
This kind of competition, I believe, drives a lot of us guitar players, especially in the youth, towards getting better. I mean, I dreamed about getting the best guitar player ever. And when I started, I was thinking like, oh man, I would give everything to play guitar like Kirk Hammett back in the day.
Mm.
Nowadays, I'm like, no, I would sell everything to not play guitar like Kirk Hammett. No, but just kidding. But I mean, the image of being the best from the group, knowing more solos, more scales, more theory than everybody else,
Mhm.
kind of drive towards getting better for a long of youth guy. And then we mature and we realized, and then internet happens. This is the thing that I guess for you and for me happens. Like YouTube appeared, and I remember seeing my first Jack Gardner video in, I believe, 2010, 2009, and I was
Oh
like,
wow, yeah.
oh no, I'm not that good actually. And then everything,
Yeah, yeah, very eye-opening. Guthrie was one for
yeah.
me that was like, oh my, again, like what is happening? Like
But
I think
Guthrie
I'm
is the
good.
thing that he was much older, and I was always thinking like, okay, he is so many years older than I, so I still have so many years left to become that good like him. And
I still get like that. I'm like inching closer to the age he was in that video, and I
yeah,
don't think I'm even half as good yet. So yeah, that age thing is I mean, it's a bit of a curse, really. Yeah, because I feel I do the exact same thing. It's just
yeah,
like I've seen guitar players that I've now since surpassed in age, and it's just like, I mean, think about like Dream Theater. I mean, how old was Petrucci for
yeah,
Images and Words?
yeah,
Like
like
what,
in
early
his
20s?
mid-20s, early 20s, something like that. Yeah,
Mid 20s tops, and he's doing that, and it's like,
yeah.
I'm not writing images of words, not even close. Like it's just insane. Like
That's
yeah, it sort of plays into that timeless thing that I mentioned of like, good music and good playing is just good no matter what. Like I don't know, use it as fuel to inspire yourself and
there. I'm
find your
always a
sound.
little
Don't
bit
get disheartened.
I'm always a little bit jealous or jealous to somebody like John Petrucci or these guys from the 80s because they did nothing else to do back in the 80s. Where I tried to imagine like how would life be without a video game, without consoles, with all this kind of stuff that
With
can
the iPhone.
you know?
We're having to post something every couple of days to to stay. I
Just
know it was
music.
different time for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you had any lessons in your career, or are you completely self-taught? And if yes, are there any lessons or advices or realization that was some sort of game changer for you in your playing, where you realize, oh, when I can do this, then I can do this as well, or this really changed my technique a lot? Are there any moments like that?
No, I never had formal lessons. By what I mean by formal lessons is I've never actually paid money to sit one on one with the tutor, for like an hour or whatever. So
Cheap life.
in that sense, I'm self-taught. But I mean, obviously, I had a lot of friends around me who probably were getting lessons and would share some knowledge that they were given from either their teacher or whoever taught them, could be a family member or something. But I remember, particularly my uncle again, who gave me my first guitar. I remember going over a couple times. We just listen to music, and I'll try out some of his guitars. He had like this Gibson Flying V. That was like my dream guitar at the time. I was obsessed with it. I even had like, I don't know if you remember some of my early videos where I had the LTD
Yeah,
V100.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that was like my answer to it. Was sort of like a modern take on my favorite guitar shape at the time, and still great guitar. I don't know where it is now. It's somewhere at my parents' place, but it was really good. But he would sort of show me some things about like picking. I remember just like when you first start, you don't really know how to pick properly. Obviously, I was holding it with I'll get an actual pick. I'd hold it with three fingers like that.
Yeah, I
That
did
old
this in the beginning
chestnut.
too. Yeah, yeah.
So I was doing that a bit, and he sort of told me, oh, like, but he wouldn't tell me off, but he would say something like, oh, all the good players hold it like that, or something like that. He was sort of like hint at like you're doing it wrong. The players who are really good are doing it this way.
Mhm.
Hint, sort of thing. I'm like, oh, okay. And it's sort of like you feel like you're sort of going back to the drawing board. And the same thing happened. Like I was down picking everything. I didn't
Mhm.
know up picking was
Yeah,
even a thing. And he goes, oh, you have to play it this riff up and down. I can't remember what it was. I think it was like Wasted Years by Iron Maiden, which fair
yeah.
enough. Yeah, you have to play that. You can't downpick that. If someone can downpick all that, I'd love that'll be like a viral video. Like I can't wait to see it. But so that was it. So in terms of like just sort of getting me on the right track, I guess I've got my uncle to thank for quite a lot of like just the really formative introduction techniques, and things like that. But that's it. Other than that, it's been just a matter of listening to the songs and maybe getting the tab. Because I was sort of learning tab around the same time I was playing, and I'd like to think I'm pretty good at Guitar Pro because I was sort of learning that around the same time as well. And that was pretty really good for, I guess, technique training, like learning solos from other players as well.
Yeah.
Um, and sort of seeing, like, not just hearing it, but sort of visually seeing how, like, ergonomically it looks. Because you
Mm.
can hear, like, particularly finger tapping and all that, just like, if you haven't heard that before, it's like, what the heck is he doing? He's like 12 fret stretches or something. It's impossible. And he's playing
Yeah.
like 300 BPM. It's just not possible. But then when you see the tabs, like sort of demystifies it a bit. It's like, okay, that's what he's doing. That's actually, it doesn't make it less cool, but it sort of humanizes it and sort of gives you the idea of, oh, okay, that's how he's doing that. That's why he's choosing that note. Maybe it's, within reach of whatever his third finger or whatever. That makes sense. So things like that. So I guess in that sense, I guess you would say self-taught. I don't know what would you call that?
Yeah, I would call this self-taught.
Yeah. I'm not too sure. Like, it's always a weird one to answer. Because I don't want to be that guy that's just like, oh, I've never had a lesson. Oh, I've taught every single, I learn all my scales by myself and all my technique. It's not the whole picture. Like, like no, I haven't paid for a lesson, but I've been shown and taught things
Mm.
vicariously through other people. So yeah.
Coming a little bit more to the side where you are a creative person, because you've already released as well a solo record back in 2019, I believe.
Too long ago, yeah. I've got some new stuff coming, but that was
Oh, really? Oh, we have to talk about this later, definitely.
we will, yeah.
Um,
Uh,
what kind of stuff inspires you to write music? Because this can sometimes be completely different field than, for example, a guitar-driven music. Are there any other genres that inspires you? I mean, I hear, and I guess a lot of people, and you are open to that as well, a lot of influences by video games, by JRPGs and all this kind of stuff. There's actually one section in Pixel Art that extremely reminds me of the Zelda Zora theme of the water
oh yeah,
from
I know what
Ocarina
you're
of
talking about.
Time and all this kind of
Um,
stuff, like a breakdown version of it. And
Of course, it's
what
prog
kind,
after all.
what kind of genres or other musical kind of fields are inspiring you nowadays to write music?
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, those sort of influences, I feel like are just so ingrained in my DNA. It's just things that I grew up listening to, and I guess had a bit of a profound impact. Ocarina of Time, in particular, I mean, like, well, I mean, what a game! Like,
Mm,
just from pure artistic point of view, it's just untouched. And yeah, I remember just being so touched by, I mean, not just music, but like, yeah, like games and maybe movies and things like that. That, obviously, things I'll take to my grave, just things that I think about and, have inspired me in some sort of way. So yeah, video games are a big one. Obviously, um, a lot of music that I listen to at the time. So, listening to a lot of guitar centric stuff. Obviously, you just Satriani's and your Steve Vai's, obviously Malmsteen as well. It's kind of funny because it's like I love their music so much. Like, and their playing is, I mean, they're still gods. Like, they're just insanely good. Um, but the whole like guitar, I guess, guitar centric guitar melody, have the guitar as sort of the singing instrument. It was never something that really gravitated towards me. I kind of like the songs that didn't really have, had a bit more of an unorthodox structure and sort of, I sort of, not to sound pretentious, but I feel like the songs I come up with a sort of a bit of a journey, so they tend to be on the longer
mm,
side, and there's not a lot of repeating parts. They sort of start somewhere and end somewhere, much like a video game. You're not playing the first level, at the end of the game. You're starting weak and then you're progressing. And
mhm.
so like video games progressive metal and all these things, you kind of just you find uh a sort of tools and things that I get inspired by when I structure a song. Particularly, it has to start a certain way and sort of take you somewhere. It doesn't have to be like, oh, start soft and
Mm.
then end heavy and this big sort of crescendo massive ending or anything. It just has to take you somewhere. That's all it is. And there's no real limits.
That's the interesting take. Yeah, yeah.
Mm. But that's how I've always done it. And so in turn, generally the writing process for me is incredibly arduous. I'll come up with passages and riffs and stuff all day, every day, but anything that sticks, it kind of has to speak to me in a way, and then that I'm willing to sort of build upon it. So it's pretty difficult because I do want to kind of tell a story.
Mm.
Um, whatever that story is, again, it's sort of open to the listener. It is instrumental music after all. When there's nothing is, I could say this song, means this, but like
I mean, that's the
I
beauty
could
of it, that you can close the eyes and you can have your own image of this
exactly.
music in your head. And you need a lot of imagination, which kind of is for a lot of people a little bit abstract. But
Mhm.
I think for us, more creative and artistic people, it's just a beautiful journey to enjoy music like this and not to get manipulated by the vocalist of how we should feel about this song right now, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, sort of paints the picture for you in a way, which like is totally fine. It has
Yeah,
its
yeah, of
place and
course.
all that, but it's never been something I've been particularly good at doing or been particularly interested in writing that sort of style of music. It's like I respect like even pop and all that sort of stuff. Like I can't write a pop song that millions and millions of people are going to be humming along to, and well, that's another art form in itself. That's not what I do. So it lends itself to like when I was younger and feeling like I'm the best. Like, oh, the how are these guys pop songs? There's only three chords in the
Yeah.
song. Like it's so
No
basic.
guitar solos, no
Yeah,
nothing.
exactly. It's like, man, my song has like my one riff alone is more notes than that whole song. It's clearly better. It's just like, and as you get older, it's like that's just not the point of that music at all.
No.
It's like that naivety, man. Like
I mean,
it's all
we've been
gone now,
all through
luckily.
that. I think so
Yeah,
many guitar players out there watching this will recognize this kind of behavior, because we've been all through this kind of kind of.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Just like pretending that something is easier than it actually is. It's like, well, you write a pop hit, then it's like, Yeah, touche.
I was such a music Nazi back in the day. When a song didn't have a guitar solo that kind of catches me, when somebody was not shredding, my 16 years old Justin would say, "No, I won't listen to that. This is crap. This is bullshit." Even though the songwriting is really great, but no guitar solo, no, that's not for me.
Yeah, these players suck. Come on, like learn some shred, learn some solos.
Yeah, yeah. To the point where
Get
I
with the
was
times,
like,
guys.
to the point where I was like 20 and I started to be an acoustic third guitar player of a singer-songwriter, a touring singer-songwriter in Germany, where I really realized, okay, it's not all about standing on the stage and playing guitar solos. It's now about playing three chords over all the time, but make it kind of beautiful, make it interesting. Uh,
Yeah, and serve the song
yeah,
and be that backup support. Yeah.
yeah,
I guess when you're younger, you're and when you're learning, you sort of you can't help but feel like you're sort of playing in the spotlight in a way. So you feel like you're the one that, you know, all eyes are on you. But really at the end of the day,
yeah.
like
It's
it's not always the case. You know, it shouldn't, you know, you have to serve the song. You know,
yeah.
it's the most important part.
I mean, everything has its place. There's a place for our kind of music and a place for that kind of music, and this is totally fine. Nothing is better than the other. It's just something different. Yeah.
Exactly. 100%.
How is
Agree.
it about solo writing? Is there a different approach for you, or are you more like, okay, having a backing track and or something where you have to write a solo over and then just improvising it, or are you really mapping out something like, for example, the solo from the last Jared Dine Shred collab, which was one of the best that was in that Shred collab, because
Thank you.
several reasons. I'm going to definitely going to make a video on my YouTube channel about that solo because it really works with motifs, rhythmical ideas, all this kind of stuff that I sometimes miss in other guitar players. How do
Mhm.
you came up? What is the process behind making a solo like the ones from the Jared Dines video?
It's a good question. Yeah, I mean, definitely the backing track is, I mean, any sort of guest solo you've probably will listen to if you're new a new learner of who I am. If you hear any of sort of the guest solos I've appeared on, definitely. I mean, generally when someone sends me a track to sort of play over, what I'll do is I'll chuck it in the door and just loop the solo section just endlessly and sort of just come up with ideas. There might be parts of the rhythm in the solo section. It's like, oh, that bit be cool. Maybe I'll follow that along with like a line or um so there's little things like that you can sort of play with the motif, and it kind of keeps the theme of the song instead of just me just ripping, you know, scales over a, you know, a really beautiful backing track. Just, you know, anyone can do that. Like they could have done that. Like the artist who sent it to me could just do that. But like this, you know, you gotta sort of put your sort of stamp on it. But in terms of like creating, yeah, the Jared Dines one in particular was something I kind of really sort of went over and over. I tried because he sort of gives you a few different tracks to play over. So there's some like more melodic takes that has like a very clear chord progression. But I wanted something that wasn't so obvious. It was literally just like one note. I'm like, okay, well, you can spin this one note
Mm-hmm.
a million different ways, and
Yeah.
it's like it sort of opens up a sort of Pandora's box of ideas. So it sort of starts off in this kind of like weird chromatic, minory, augmented sort of, I guess a lot of, I guess minors are like a bunch of accidentals. Yeah, my theory is not super sound, sorry. And then sort of goes into a bit more of a, I wanted something that's a little bit more, you know, Lydian sort of sounding in there, and there's a bit of Dorian, like literally just all like the major scales that like that I sort of frequent. I'm like, well, if I can just create like again a journey, in a way that sort of takes you, you know, sort of guides you through the melodic content in a sort of interesting way, obviously packed with a lot of technique. It is a shred collab. I love seeing comments of like, oh, everyone's just playing fast and there's no feel. It's like, well, it's not a feel collab.
I mean, Baxty is such a we all know he's a
Oh,
great guitar player, but he has such a melodic, great
he
song,
does.
and I was really surprised. But really kept a smile on my face to see. Okay, that's extremely melodic and super cool. Yeah.
Yeah, his one was cool. I really like his again. It was that had that hummable nature to it. Like I was sort of, he's
Mhm.
got really good like slide bends.
Yeah,
Like it's just real, yeah, really tasteful. Like it's really cool. So I don't know. If you don't think that's got feel in it, then
that's
I
just
don't know, man.
you
I don't
picking.
know what feel means then, obviously. But the thing is, I'm not when I'm coming up with these sort of things, I sort of approach solos in general, like really long riffs.
Hmm.
Think like the Erotomania riff, but like
Hmm.
faster and in higher register. But it's like there's I mean, I love like improvising over backing tracks, like with no real like rhythmic
Mm,
context. But generally when I'm writing solos, it's very much like on a grid and it's very, very heavily composed. I find it because it's like it adds like a, if hopefully there's some ideas in there that, people can think about, can hum along to or like, remember, because sometimes when you just remember like just crazy shred solos
uh,
with no, yeah, with literally no rhythm context, it's just like, oh, just a flurry of notes. It just sounds like you're kind of improvising. I don't want it to sound improvised. I want it to sound quite, with a lot of intent and,
mm,
um, yeah, and sort of guide the listener in a way. So
mm,
that's generally how I approach it. I mean, it's in terms of how I come up with the notes, it's just like, yeah, it would just be me improvising over a track, and then maybe I'll stumble upon like a little motif or something.
mm,
Sometimes what I'll even do, I'll tab out the actual rhythm with the drums and everything in Guitar Pro. So I
mhm,
have like a one for one replica, like a MIDI replica of what they've sent me.
mhm,
Because like I don't know, cause I'm really quick with Guitar Pro as well.
mhm,
So and then I'll just like actually put notes um in Guitar Pro, like on the fretboard,
mhm.
like thing, and just like pick random notes and think, okay, well, let's try this. And then yeah, half the time it's unplayable. That's fine. And you
Yeah.
just tune it when you go to record it, you just change some of the notes. And
Mm.
yeah, you sort of use multiple tools, not just guitar and Guitar Pro are very, very useful for me personally.
That's a good point because I always stress on this channel here and on students and whatnot how important it is when you're writing a solo to have motifs that guides you through the listener. That is not only something that is fast somewhere or a lick, but something that leads to a certain point or to a certain phrase. This is something that I loved at that solo, that intro. The first kind of motive that you have there. This is it selective picking what you're doing there? The first
Um, it's sort of a thing I've always sort of messed around with. It's sort of based around kind of like a little blues, like Stevie Ray Vaughan sort of idea, but it's a little bit more. Um, so essentially, you're barring the B and the G string.
Yeah.
You're I tend to do an upstroke because it's a little bit more ergonomic. So I'll upstroke, say, the fifth fret, and then hammer on from nowhere on the G string on the ninth fret.
Yeah.
So you produce the same notes,
Same.
like and then you pull off onto the fifth of the G string, and then the seventh
Mm.
on the D string. So and that's just a repeating pattern, like
Yeah, yeah.
and if you mute it, all you really need to do is pick the B string and the D string, and then you can kind of just move your pinky around or your whole left hand around, and you can come up with some really cool sort of passages. Something I used to experiment a lot with when I was a bit younger, and I'm just sort of learning learning its limitations really, because really you're kind of bound to having a barred note. And eventually, I'm going to try and do something where I'm not barring, but it's like really difficult. But yeah, that's all it is really. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about some new music. You already gave a little hint that there's something cooking in the
Mm.
lab of Stephen Taranto. What are your plans for the future? What are the next steps for Stephen Taranto?
I mean, I always want to be putting new stuff out. I feel like it's been way too long. Like I said before, it takes me a long time to really finalize ideas, and I can then eventually track them and then get them mixed and all that sort of thing. So it's just the whole process is just really painstaking for me. But I'm 100% having new music out this year. That's a guarantee. I've already got two completed songs that will be out. So look out for those. And then the plans would be, I don't know, do some maybe do some collaborations with other artists on some songs as well. Maybe do an EP, or maybe work on an album or something of that effect. It's hard to say. I don't want to be bogged down with the stress of having to write a whole album.
Mm,
I don't know. Like, I guess it could be inspiring in a way because it's like if you have like a conceptual idea or something, but it could sort of force some creative ideas and
mm.
an album length worth of them. But I don't know. I think with this sort of music, I know like 80-minute instrumental prog albums. I don't know how
It's,
palatable that
I
is.
think when you're not used to that process, then it's really hard to get into. I mean, I see the comparison because I'm more like you writing something for a shorter term, like social media and stuff like that. But for example, my bandmate from Eternity and Christian Münzner, who is the current guitar player of Obscura and used to be from
Mm.
of Ages and everything. He's currently writing the Obscura record, and he's such a good album writer. He can sit down like 3 weeks doing nothing else than just writing and recording an album and doing everything in 3 weeks because he's so used to it. In 2022, he released like 4 records: solo record, our record, Obscura record,
My God,
everything like,
what a
and
weapon.
he's really quick with that. But he
Mm,
has such a problem to do something short term. I always push him like, do more social media, do more reels, and he has such a hard time doing all this kind of stuff. Um, so I think when you're not used to this kind of process, it's really hard to get into it, especially to find the focus and the time for it. It's so hard for me to sit down and do one thing for the next 3 weeks only. I'm just
I
way too
agree.
distracted about that and have new ideas here and there and doing that. And yeah.
Yeah, some people are just wired differently. That's just how, like that, like you said, that's a natural, that's a muscle that he's trained,
Yeah.
where that's not even like abnormal for him to
Yeah.
write and record
Yeah.
like that sort of music. Like it's not, he's not playing Blink songs. Like
Oh.
that's crazy to hear. That's pretty scary actually. I should probably up my game a bit.
How's the live scene in Australia? Are there any plans for you to bring your music on the stage? Is there a possibility to bring your music on the stage though, or do you already plan it to make a little bit more globally because Australia is a little bit limited? Or is it limited? I don't know. I have no idea about
Yeah,
Australia.
I mean, the thing with Australia is it's a big place, but it's also a very small place.
Yeah.
So, like it'll be Sydney, and then your next major city is like 9 hours away by by van or whatever. So it's just these logistical issues playing. I mean, actually I did do a tour back last so late 2022, I believe it was. Me and an artist named James Norbert Avani, another
Yes,
killer
yes.
Australian guitar player.
Mm.
We did a short little East Coast tour. It was like 3 shows. And then before that, I actually did a supporting gig at another East Coast tour with Plenty actually in the middle of 2022. So the ability to play the stuff live is definitely there. But like you said, like personally, before I can even think about doing any more tours and stuff, obviously touring at the moment is just astronomically expensive. Especially out of the country, it's just unbelievable. I mean, not to take into account, visas and
Uh,
bandwagons and tour managers and blah blah blah. It's just. I mean, obviously, I'd love to. I love playing on stage. It's like one of my favorite things to do ever. But it has to be, viable, realistic context.
and
It's
it's
it's tough.
alone. It's alone making music is hard enough to pay everything like the rent and all this kind of stuff, and then paying a tour
Mhm.
is like nearly impossible. Yeah, yeah.
Pretty
Sadly.
hard at the moment. I mean, things may change in the future, but as it stands now, my focus is pretty much drawn towards just finishing more songs and
Mm.
putting some stuff out. And just maybe just doing more stuff online as it is. I've been a bit slack with social media as a whole. Just again, just call it what you want, burnout maybe, or maybe just focusing on other aspects, the Christian sort of way, maybe just focusing on just writing songs instead of just being online all the time. But
Yeah,
I do plan on just doing more content as well because it's fun. Like it's fun to interact and because every time I tend to post something, it's like I'll just get a wave of messages of people talking. It's just like it's cool. It's cool to talk to the community and
yeah.
keep up appearances and stuff. And it's inspiring for me as well. But yeah, just just need to do more.
Awesome. To end this interview, one last question. If there's something that you would recommend a young and an aspiring guitar player who is now sitting there in his room checking YouTube, watching this video, what would you recommend the next generation of guitar player where they have to be careful or some certain advice where you've learned out of your history? Is there something that you want to give them on their way?
Yeah, I mean, there's no shortage of insane guitar players to equally get influenced and disheartened by particularly that the latter. Just don't get disheartened by players. I mean, like you'll see the jokey comment of like, oh, I'm gonna burn my guitars now after
Yeah.
seeing that, or I'm gonna quit. And it's just like look, it's funny. assuming they meant it as a joke, but if people are generally like wanting to put the guitar down because someone can play something better than them, like think about the amount of hours that person probably put into getting it at that tight. Like, you know, getting to that point for anyone didn't hasn't come without their fair share of sacrifices. So the idea is just don't get disheartened and use all this as fuel for your
Mm, yeah.
playing rather than fueling the fireplace to show your guitars into, for lack of a better term. That's
Yeah,
one
right.
thing I'll do because I mean we're all human at the end of the day. Like I get really down on my own playing as well sometimes. Like some days are definitely worse than others, and that's just totally normal. Like it's peaks and valleys. Like some days you're not creative, some days you've written 3 songs.
Mm,
I think the idea is just, and this is like kind of me talking to myself in a way as well. It's like on the down days,
mm,
just know that there are going to be better days, and then on the better days, you just take it by the horns and you run with it and
yeah.
just go for gold. And also don't limit yourself to learning one style of music or even listening to one style of music. Like broaden different genres, even genres you wouldn't think you would like. What am I discovering at the moment? A lot of like
Mm,
noise rock and that sort of thing. I guess like shoegazy sort of stuff.
mm, yeah.
Not a heck of a lot, but I've heard some artists out there, and it's inspiring to hear different takes. Like because people there's so many bands and guitarists to get inspired by, and you can kind of Frankenstein it in your own way and use it to create your own voice.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but like, there's no time limit. Like, just have fun. If you're not having fun, then that's a whole different thing. You should probably reassess whether you even like playing guitar in the first place, or if you're just doing it for some sort of ulterior motive.
Mm,
Um, you have to love the process. I
yeah.
think that's the most important thing, and I've mentioned it before. Um, like playing guitar doesn't feel like work to me. I don't feel like I have to practice, if you will. Like, oh no,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's 12 o'clock. I gotta play for an hour now. It's like going to class or something. It's like it doesn't feel like that. It's totally natural. And I think if you have that kind of spark and you just enjoy it for the sake of doing it, then I think you'll go really far. Even if you don't feel like you're at where you are now, that's the sort of attitude you can try and adopt. And if you don't feel like that, you can you know, just yeah, just push through. If it's not for you, it's not for you. It's not the end of the world. Like no one's
Yeah, that's
dying
just
because you
guitar.
don't feel like. Yeah, exactly. That's right.
We're not
Like
saving the world.
exactly 100%. Yeah, like that's the sort of point I'm getting at. It's totally fine, but like just ultimately don't get discouraged. It's fine. We're all, and like we mentioned before, it's one of the most accepting communities, and everyone's really like just stoked to hear other people playing and like getting better as well. It's like it's awesome. It's really awesome. So just keep at it, man. It's awesome.
I always say this, in Instagram or on social media, you always see the best from a certain guitar player, but you always have to realize they also look up to other guitar players. They also have the days where they think, oh man, I should work on this or I could work on this. We are all humans, and you have to love the process on working on your stuff and not you don't have to focus for the goal, but you have to love the way to the goal. And for me, I love practicing. Practicing is the best part of the day, is sitting down. I cannot start my day without having a guitar in my hand and just practicing some stuff. And yeah, as you mentioned, when you have that spark, then everything's fine. And even not, I mean, I know tons of guitar players who are great guitar players who hate practicing. I mean, that's also fine. We're just there for playing. That's also totally cool and totally fine. But for me, I love practicing.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, and like I said, that's just our thing. Like
Yeah,
we do
yeah,
it. It's not work for us. It's
yeah,
just natural, just like breathing and
yeah,
yeah, eating and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, well, I guess we're lucky in that sense, but
yeah,
it's not impossible. If you find your own voice and your own way of
yeah.
tackling it, and that could be inspiring for us as well.
Yeah, of course,
Your
definitely.
method,
I mean, all the
whatever that is.
all the all the next generation, all the followers, the people who are supporting us, the community, they can be also so inspire it's such a big inspiration on us. Even some people just commenting on a video and reminding me to focus more on this or on that or whatnot. It's sometimes, heck, I get a lot of inspiration just out of my community, and this is also really, really cool for us guitar players. We are not at the end of guitar playing. There's still so much to do and to learn. Yeah.
Barely scratched the surface. I think it's going to be really exciting this next decade for sure.
Awesome, Stephen. Thank you very, very much to have you here on this YouTube channel finally.
I'm honored, man. Thanks for having me. It's been really fun. Let's do it again.
Can't wait to hear and to see more from you. Please put out as much music and videos as possible. For me, it always puts a big smile on my face to see, or sometimes a smile, or sometimes I have to share a tear because I'm like, ah, God damn it.
They're good tears. They're good tears. And likewise, man. I love your content and just your approach and your positivity, and it's much needed in a very interesting world we live in at the moment. Yeah, I can't wait to see more from yourself, and yeah, thanks for the encouragement as well.
So for everybody who is listening or who is viewing this, check out Stephen Taranto, check out his Bandcamp. There he's selling tabs and the record, his solo record. You can stream it as well on Spotify. Check him out on Instagram, Facebook, if there's anyone still really active. I don't know, TikTok.
I'm not really active on Facebook, but if you use it, it's there as well. It's like
this once a week, just checking and then thinking,
yeah, that's right. No. Exactly.
Mostly Instagram, YouTube.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. So see you soon, Stephen. See you soon, all the viewers now out there. And I wish you a lot of fun practicing your guitar. Cheers and stay progress. Bye.
Catch you guys. Thank you. Thanks, Justin.